With my rucksack fully packed, the dog absolutely knew that something was up. If she wasn't sniffing and sticking her nose in my rucksack, then she was busy whining, yawning, or staring at me with intent. Like a true professional, I packed for the winter, and as you can see, I really had my act together. Great job! From there, I took the dog for a quick walk, and would you notice that this dog has a new Carhartt before I do? From there, I loaded her up into the car, and naturally, I gave her her good girl treat. Because, let's be honest, this right here is the face of a good girl. I love this dog. And officially starting off today's roundup in style, it's everyone's fan favorite who just happened to finish his university exams, Tauntaun. And ever shrouded in mystery is everyone's other favorite, Blake. Also, did you like that transition effect? I thought it was cool. And rounding it out is everyone's other final favorite. That's right, the lady killer himself. Here he is. Eat 'em. Is this not the best picture you could possibly hope for? Now, transitioning back to reality here, we started off our drive fairly late in the day at roughly 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were fortunate that driving through the darkness of winter was not that particularly bad today. At least until we finally hit gravel roads on the side of a mountain for the final 45 minutes. Not the most fun, but not terrible. After 3.5 hours of driving, we arrived at the Lil Snowbird campsite, and we'd like to thank our friends at Hip Camp for making this reservation possible. And here is campsite number 11 in the pitch of night. It's actually a really beautiful spot, and as you'll see in the morning, has an overlook on the mountainside here. Under the light of a full moon, as well as our own personal torches, and of course the Jeep and Tacoma headlights, we set up our camp, and we're very lucky that we had such a perfect spot to set up in. It really only took our team roughly 15 minutes to get fully situated in the dark, and it wasn't too long before it looked like we had ourselves a real village going on. It is also nice to know that under the glow of the Jeep lights, my dog was watching me, protecting me from atop a rock. She also might have possibly been trying to eat a snail, but I prefer to think she was protecting me. While we built our tent city under the cover of a Jeep's headlights, Edam's superior Tacoma headlights had something else to show. Edam's Tacoma bed had been transformed into an economic tiny living space, and it really puts micro houses to shame, let me tell you. Cheers to that, old son. By the end of it, I was comfortably nestled inside of my tent with a dog sitting atop my entire chest and my body fully submerged here in a sleeping bag. By midnight that night, it would reach roughly 28 degrees Fahrenheit or roughly -2 degrees Celsius, and sleeping conditions were absolutely ideal. Watching the sun rise and the world come to life up in the Appalachian Mountains is always an incredible privilege, especially when you happen to be sleeping on the side of a cliff. Now, most of our viewers are probably quite familiar with what our general morning routine is at camp. And don't worry, this man is not a criminal, it's just Blake. Certainly there's something to be said about the fun of drinking coffee on a cliff. However, such serenity does not last all day, and we do have to get to work. In this case, we're collecting firewood and kindling. And now, our good friend Edam is going to talk to us about how to start the perfect fire.
We have the perfect kindling. My microeconomics final exam. No more stress. No more pain. Supply and demand curves.
Truly, our friend Edam could not have picked a better fire starter had he tried. And just like our modern-day economy, it all soon went up in flames. Soon enough, it was being fully engulfed in fire, however, we needed more. So I took my natural role as a manager and put Blake to hard labor.
Good job. Good job.
Please don't worry, however, we all share in the burdens of hard work out here.
this, don't you?
All of that fresh firewood allowed us to finally get started on this delicious breakfast. And please don't worry about our beloved dog. She got to enjoy some of the good life too. From there, Chef Edom dropped a few eggs into our scramble, and you can see it taking shape right here. Then Chef heated up some delicious frozen hash. We warmed our tortillas here on the iron. And we were finally able to partake in the delicious delicacy that we all know and love as the breakfast burrito. Doesn't that look tasty? Further, there's absolutely no reason to worry about how the dog was doing because she was eating like some kind of a queen or princess, I don't know, but dog royalty nonetheless. While we were eating, we also got a visit from the camp owner, Mr. Andrew Brady, and no, he's not related to that Brady, but still, he gave us a free map and showed us all the sites to go and visit for the day. We've said it once, but I'll say it again, we highly recommend this place. Andrew's a great guy, he's also a veteran, so please come out and support this amazing business. It really is a top-tier location. We meandered our way down the mountain, hoping to finally get a start on our day and get to the action. We went through the front gate of Lil Snowbird's front entrance, and we were ready to get to something pretty fun. We were finally going to fulfill the wishes of our subscriber and commenter, Wilaby-tanks, of going fishing. We were so happy to be in a place where we could do that. And we really thought for a moment that we were in the perfect place to do this filming, until we talked to the owner and realized that Hurricane Helen had changed the fish population drastically. We went ahead and consulted our map, as well as Andrew, and then we figured out exactly what we were going to do with our day from here. We took the advice of campsite owner Andrew and decided to make our way out of the Lil Snowbird area and up into the Joyce Kilmer Rainforest and wilderness. He told us that this spot of rainforest happened to have some of the oldest and tallest trees this side of the Mississippi. That's the East Coast, just in case you need help with the cardinal directions, friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, here at the Lil Snowbird, we were hoping to get some quality fishing done. Unfortunately, it looks like all of our trout have gone upstream for the winter. This really is a beautiful place to come out, and I'm certain it's a great place to fish when it's warmer. But unfortunately, we've been skunked by just about a week or two being out of season. So better luck next time. Now come with us as we hit the road and see what else we can find.
We took our friend Andrew's advice to heart and made our way out of camp and decided it was time to explore Appalachia and see one of the few rainforests within the United States of America. We also might have hit a puddle or two on the way out just for fun, but nothing crazy. And although these are public roads, I can assure you they're not paved with anything other than mud and rock, so be prepared to get a touch dirty, whether or not you hit a puddle. Before you here is the amazing lake Santeetlah. This lake was built in 1928 as part of a damming effort of the Chihuahua River. Although it was originally created to aid in hydroelectric power creation, it now largely serves as a recreational reservoir for many visitors in the area. It also shows that we're going in the right direction towards the Joyce Kilmer Forest. We took a quick break to hike one of the scenic overlooks nearby and get a good look at the lake. And it did make for a nice family photo, so I suppose everyone's mom will be pleased with it. That's all fine and dandy now, but what we're really trying to do is get right here to the Joyce Kilmer, so we continue on now. From Lil Snowbird all the way to the Joyce Kilmer, it should only be a 45-minute drive at most. Further, it is extremely beautiful, and there are plenty of great waterways and foliage to see along the way. When it finally looks like that you're driving through roads that carve through the middle of a mountain, which they are, you'll have finally arrived at your destination. Before you here is the Joyce Kilmer Memorial Forest. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes of today's subject. Before you here is the Joyce Kilmer Memorial Forest. This is part of the Santeetlah and an even larger part of the Appalachian Mountains, which in turn is part of the Appalachian Temperate Rainforest. Crazy series of connections there. This is a very popular area for hiking and features a relatively moderate 2.5-mile figure-8 trail that is easily accessible to the public. The namesake of this actual park, Mr. Joyce Kilmer, is a famed author, writer, and poet from the early 1900s. In particular, he's best known for his poem Trees. Sadly, Mr. Kilmer was killed in 1918 during the Second Battle of the Marne, in part of the First World War. When you read a poem like Trees, you can see how deeply Mr. Kilmer cared for nature, and he truly did deserve to have a park named after him for what he loved.
Now, the hike out here that we're doing is a touch impromptu, but we're so excited to be here out at the Joyce Kilmer, because Joyce Kilmer happens to be one of 2 rainforests within the United States. It's absolutely fantastic. As we get deeper in, we'll show you just how dense some of this foliage gets. Till then, why don't you come along with us? This is going to be fun.
Crossing the bridge and taking the stairs already transports you into what feels like another world, and it really is something incredible to see.
Something that's absolutely incredible about being here is just how much magnolia you see. Magnolia likes it typically very wet with a touch of sun, a little bit of shade. It's intermediate in that regard, but it loves water. And this valley here is absolutely full of it. It starts at the very top and works its way all the way down into this rainforest. Take a look. It's so dense.
The scale to which these plants are present, paired with the humidity in this forest, absolutely is captivating. Further, it is otherworldly. The amount of foliage that surrounds you is beautiful, though in some ways it's almost overwhelming, as it forms all these natural bridges, hallways, and towers over you. Further, it also tends to trap moisture in, which leads to one needing to throw off their layers in order to prevent overheating, as you can see here.
Not only is this place absolutely packed with such deep-seated root structure and blanketed in magnolia, something else that's so interesting is that even here in 58 degrees Fahrenheit currently, it's surprisingly humid. It's the middle of winter right now, and we have to actually take off layers, not just because we're pushing so hard as we go uphill, but it's just a matter of fact of just so much moisture is in the air. You actually get really heated being in this environment. So just imagine how warm you must be when the summer comes in full force with the rain season.
Pressing on a bit further, we come upon another really interesting sighting that's worth sharing with my friends here in the audience.
Something that's absolutely incredible here is the size of this poplar. We've not really come that high up, we're not even a mile in, and as you can tell, I'm nearly out of breath already, but the size of this is incredible. Just look how rich this soil is. That's rainforest soil in this area, and there's so many more trees like this. We've not even hit the halfway point, because once you get about 1.5 miles up, the trees only get bigger. So this is just a little guy in all comparison. Take a look at this beauty.
I would also like to give a quick size comparison here. My boot is a size 12, and this leaf is larger than that. Another key feature here of the Joyce Kilmer is the fact that this is an old-growth forest. Now, an old-growth forest happens to be a forest that has been largely undisturbed by man, therefore being given an extremely long period of time to develop naturally. These areas have high levels of biodiversity. Now, let me give you an example of this.
Hello, friends. How are you? Now, here is an absolutely great example of how large the trees will get out here just below the halfway point. This tree here I can fit myself into, and you have to remember that I'm also carrying this roughly 50-pound pack. Taking that a step further, this tree was most likely double the size that we're in now with this dead shell. Isn't that incredible? Take a look all the way up.
And as strange as it may seem, part of this tree is most likely still alive. I would like to make a note very quickly that this trail is not particularly difficult and is fairly welcoming to most people. However, if you really want to explore it, then you should be careful, and that level of work does take someone in a better level of physical shape. Further, the rocky and sometimes muddy environment may prove to be difficult for children and the elderly, so be careful. Now, the only one in our group who was really out of breath happened to be myself, but that's because I decided to carry a 50-pound ruck on me when that really most likely would not have been needed. By mile 1.2, we had made it to the halfway point, and this is easily noted by the giant plaque in this rock. Again, this is a reminder that the forest is dedicated to the memory of Joyce Kilmer and his love of nature and service to his nation. At this point, we decided to take the upper loop trail, as this would show off some of the biggest trees in the area, and Edom was quite happy because he found his first really big tree.
Now that's a big ass tree.
Indeed it is, Edom, and they only get bigger. Let me show you.
Now here is an example of a really big mama. Just for comparison, I can't even really fully hug this thing, but I tried. The oldest trees out here are over 400 years old, so this one, although not quite up there, is certainly getting close, and the size of it is absolutely immense. It's not the redwoods, but it's the closest and next best thing.
Piggybacking off of that is the fact that the Joyce Kilmer Forest is one of the oldest hardwood forests this side of the East Coast. Now, come along as we see even larger trees on the second half of this hike. Now, here's something we don't often think of.
Now, although it's incredibly sad to see a friend like this fall down, the wonderful beauty of a tree finally coming of age and dying is the fact that it makes the opportunity for more life to come about. Notice how this moss and these ferns latch on and start feeding right away. Eventually, a great big log like this will just become earth again. So even in death, there's something beautiful about these plants giving back.
And as morbid as it may seem, it really is incredible when you come out here to see all the remains of the fallen trees and the acres upon acres of moss and fern they produce.
Now this here is a really cool sight. You see, this isn't actually just one felled tree. There's the center root, there's the center root, and here is a separation of bark, internal. This was actually two trees that conjoined together and then grew to look like one. Isn't that fascinating?
Before you hear as well is a fascinating example of some of the crazy root structures you'll see in this area, digging into this ever incredible fertile soil. Though we're able to see the underside of this tree due to erosion, it really is almost a modern work of art. And here's another fun one to look at.
Have you ever found yourself between a rock and a hard place? Or in this case, it's just two massive trees. Again, it's incredible how they almost have this symbiosis of competing for nutrition and at the same time, both sharing in the sunlight together. Crazy, isn't it?
This also made for a really great first photo opportunity. Let me share some of that with you right now. Here's a nice family photo for the album of Blake, worth sharing.
Now, it's not an uncommon sight, but it is pretty cool to see where other creatures will actually go in and burrow. What might have started off as just a simple kind of maggot or termite hole has turned into a habitat now for some kind of small animal to burrow in. Kind of fun, and I can really dig the place.
Even more fortunate for us is that as we follow this footpath, the trees only get bigger and better from here. This next one coming up is my personal favorite.
Now, this one here absolutely dwarfs what we saw down near the base of the mountain. Having come up beyond the halfway point, this thing is ridiculous. You could honestly probably fit a family of 5 in here relatively comfortably, or one gas station trucker, all depending. It's so spacious, and frankly, it's got a great ambiance. When this thing was alive, imagine how old it was. Most likely, this one was able to get to the 400-year marker. As I put my hands out, I can just barely touch both sides. You have to come in and take a look.
Here is what the hollowed out tree base looks like from the inside. It's almost like you found yourself an entirely new home, that or you're about to start baking cookies with elves. Still, very cool, very fun. I didn't mean to walk into this shot, but I did.
See, I'm not lying. In this case, we fit a family of 4 in with packs and a small dog. Wave hi to Mom, guys. Hi, Mom.
Hopefully this gives you a bit of scale perspective. It also makes for a pretty photogenic area. This one is going on my refrigerator personally. And here's an excellent example of these poplars at their very core.
Well, that was a big-ass tree.
And indeed it was. However, it's not only big by circumference, these are also incredibly large by height. Some of these get up to over 100+ feet in total height. And before we come to the very end of our hike, in our downward descent, with the dog pulling us directly ahead, we came to the final really big tree of the day.
Now that is a big-ass tree.
Here's a nice picture of the team in front of the tree together for perspective.
Piggybacking off of what our good friend Adam said, indeed, yes, this is the largest tree that we've seen all day. They say out here that in the Santeetlah area, the oldest tree can be up to 450 years old. And although this fine specimen most likely isn't 450 years old, he is darn close to it. This is the most incredible tree we've seen on this coast by far. It's just ridiculously large. This is fantastic as an example of God's green earth.
And while we enjoyed God's green earth, the boys decided it was also the perfect opportunity to take some pictures. Or at least that's what I believe this ritual here is all about. Uh-huh. I like this one here of Blake, where he looks like some kind of Keebler elf preparing to dance the traditional Russian priviledge. And here's a nice one of the boys deciding to join the cult of the forest. Oh dear. From there, we were largely finished and began making our way downhill at a relatively safe speed. Or at least until we decided to impersonate race cars and run downhill as quickly as possible. Because we're grown men and that's what we do. A little sad, but funny. With our hike finally over, we marched down the side of the mountain, crossed the river, and slowly made our way back to the car so we could return to base camp. All in all, this was a very enjoyable trip, and we highly suggest you come out to the Joyce Kilmer.
Ladies and gentlemen, our time here at the Joyce Kilmer Forest is now at an end. We had an excellent hike here, and although we didn't initially plan for it, it was a great deal of fun. How large the trees are, the bountiful amounts of foliage, in particular the magnolias, and the surprising amount of Instagram photos that we've been able to take. It's so good to be out here and it's so beautiful. I really praise this environment. Now, I don't suggest this for the very young and old, depending, but it's still an excellent environment to come out to for most people. We had so much fun and I highly recommend you come out here. Now it's starting to get dark, so we're gonna make our way back to camp. And from there, you can see what we're doing there. See you soon.
By the time that we arrived at camp, it was getting late out and we would be making our dinner in the dark. No worries, however, because Eden was able to get a fire going just after using some of the old coals from this morning. And although the low of the night would only go down to the lower 30s, it was still quite nice to have a fire. And tonight's dinner was going to be delicious pulled pork, which really is a luxury out here. That's no exaggeration, it was absolutely fantastic on a day like today.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the night for us, and this is our pulled pork sandwich. I'll take a bite and let you know how it is, just in case we feel critical. No, that hits the spot. Thank you, Miss Aiken, for prepping it, and thank you, Chef Adam, for making it. Other than that, I'm gonna be quiet now.
After dinner, we gathered around the fire and did our best to stay warm, until of course that fire turned to ember. We also listened to the publicly broadcasted weather forecast, and we heard that tonight there'd be a roughly 50% chance of rain. But hopefully that wasn't really going to happen. At that juncture, we all hit our bunks for the night and prayed to the good Lord above that we would not be drowned out and flooded in a torrential downpour the following morning. From there, we let all of the day's events slowly lull us into a deep sleep. Well, some days our prayers don't quite go as answered, but that being said, it is rather beautiful to hear and watch the rain fall on the tent canvas. Stepping outside, it was easy to tell that the original torrential downpour had been downgraded to a simple shower. We were also fortunate that our tent stayed dry, so sleeping remained ever so comfortable. And even though it was a wet, cold, and damp morning, there really is something to be said about the beauty of the Appalachian Mountains regardless of the conditions. It also didn't take the team much time to engage in the ritualistic tradition of the morning hour.
Well, I am certain you all know how we do things out here in the morning. Oh, that hits the spot. See, it's even beautiful on a rainy day. Don't let me obscure your view. Take a look.
Again, it's very hard to be upset when you have a view like this, whether it's rain or shine. Once coffee was finished, it was time to pack up camp, although it was a touch more difficult when you slip in the mud. While Blake, Tauntaun, and myself packed up camp, Edom got started on making this morning's breakfast. In this circumstance, it was going to be morning hash and biscuits and gravy. And let me tell you guys, the smoke rolling off of it was absolutely fantastic. In particular, the dog was having an absolutely luxurious morning. Not only getting to eat biscuits and gravy, but stay in the Jeep with its heater on. I'm kinda jealous.
Ladies and gentlemen, our camping trip here has come to an end. Unfortunately, it's raining quite heavily right now, and it's gonna stay the most of the day, so unfortunately we can't get all the shots we were hoping for, including a few drone overheads and some better camera work. All of that said though, we've had an incredible time, so we're really hoping that we can come back in the future. And we do have this beautiful meal here. I'd like to give compliments to the chef because it looks quite good. In fact, it even tastes good. Now, we'll be coming back hopefully sometime in a few months. Until then, we're not going to have much luck, I'm afraid, waiting this one out. Our final thoughts and conclusions we'll save for the Burlap Palace. But until then, thank you everyone for coming along with us, and we really hope and encourage you to come out here and visit. It is beautiful. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, here from our Burlap Palace. I'd like it known that the entirety of the Eager Beaver crew survived this incredible ordeal. Incredible ordeal, yeah. Further, our dog is sleeping quite soundly at the moment, so we're guaranteed to get some good film going. Let me show you real quick.
Aw, now isn't that just wholesome and cute to see? Hello, puppy.
Our time at the Appalachian Rainforest, in particular the Joyce Kilmer section of the forest, was absolutely superb, and I really encourage anyone and everyone to go. Now, although it's listed as a fairly easy beginner's hike, I would take a minor of caution just because depending on conditions it could be more taxing for the elderly or first-timers. That's just a personal choice, however. It's less than 3 miles in total, unless you're like us and you constantly double back for pictures. But all in all, it's a very beautiful hike, and it's an excellent example of a temperate rainforest. And on the East Coast in particular, there aren't many of those to really be seen in such large biodiversity. We also would like to give a thumbs up when it comes to the Lil Snowbird primitive campsite. We had an absolutely amazing time there. Andrew is a great guy. It's accessible to most everyone. It's so beautiful. Whether you want to sleep on the side of a cliff or next to a stream, it's all available to you. We essentially had an entire cliffside to ourselves, which is an amazing privilege. So go ahead and give them a check sometime that you would like to maybe go camping out in the area. Hip Camp, thank you for being part of this and making it possible. Thus concludes our thoughts on this amazing trip that we've had out to Appalachia, and we will be getting back to some more travel vlogs fairly soon, so keep your eyes opened. Also, to our wonderful friend Wallaby, we're incredibly sorry that we couldn't get the fishing video that you wanted, but we will be on the case and have that to you shortly. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Eager Beaver, and I am signing off.